Okay, today we're going to talk about solving a system of linear equations that has a quadratic in it. So please make sure that you take out a piece of loose leaf paper. If you chose not to print out the notes, I'm going to warn you ahead of time, they are a lot of steps, but once you get the hang of it, it's really not that bad. It's a lot of writing, but it's not difficult. So to solve a system of quadratic linear equations, the first thing you're going to do is make sure that one equation is equal to y. If not, you're going to solve one equation for y. You're going to plug that equation into the second equation instead of the y. We're going to substitute like we did when we did a system of linear equations. You're going to use addition and subtraction to move all of the terms to one side of the equation. You're going to factor and set each factor equal to 0 and then solve. After that, you have to plug each answer into an original equation to get the corresponding y value. I would recommend using the easier equation when you're trying to find the y. You have to write both of your answers as points, x, y. If you want to, you can check your answer on the calculator. So if we look at this first system of equations, first thing we want to do, basically what we're doing here is finding where the two equations cross each other on graph paper without using graph paper. So the first thing we want to do is make sure one of the equations is equal to y. If we look, this one is equal to y, so I'm going to substitute it in for y in the other equation. So I'm going to start by writing x squared minus 6x, because that's y, and then I'm going to copy down the rest of the equation. Now I have a regular quadratic equation. I'm going to combine these two terms, so x squared minus 5x equals -4. Since I have an x squared, I'm going to make sure that the equation is equal to 0, so I'm going to move the 4 over. Now I'm going to factor. I'm looking for two numbers that add to -5 and multiply to 4. So if I list my factors of 4, I have 1 and 4, or 2 and 2. Since I want them to add to -5, if I make both of these negatives, that gives me -5. So my factors here are x minus 1 and x minus 4. Now I'm going to solve them. So I'm going to t-chart it. So x minus 1 equals 0. If I solve, I get x equals 1 over here. If I solve, I get x equals 4. Now don't forget, I have two x values. I need two corresponding y values. So I have to pick the easier equation. I think this one is easier. So when x equals 1, if I take one of the original equations and I substitute, I plug in my x value and solve, I get y equals -5. So my first answer is 1, -5. I have to do it again for this answer. So when x equals 4, again, I'm going to pick the bottom equation because I think that's easier to work with. If you like the top, pick the top. It doesn't matter. I'm going to plug in my answer, and I'm going to solve. And here I get y equals -8. So my second answer is 4, -8. So it's not extremely difficult, it's just a lot of writing. If we look at the next example, again, the first thing I want to do is check, does one of my equations equal y? The bottom one does. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to plug it in there. So for the top equation, this now becomes 2x squared minus x plus 3. I have to write down the rest of that equation, minus x equals 7. Now I'm going to combine like terms on the left. 2x squared, -x, minus another x is -2x, plus 3 equals 7. Since I have an x squared, I want the equation equal to 0, so I can factor it. Now, if I look at what I'm left with, I notice all of these terms here are divisible by 2, so I can take out a GCF of 2. Now, if I factor what's left in these parentheses, I'm looking for two numbers that add to -1 and multiply to -2. So my factors of -2 are 1 and 2. The 2 has to be negative because I want to add to -1. So this now factors to 2x plus 1, x minus 2. Now if I t-chart it, technically we're going to triple t-chart it. This first one here, when you get 2 equals 0, that's garbage. If this here were an x, we would get a third answer. Here, x plus 1 equals 0. If I solve, I'm going to get x equals -1. Here, if I set this factor equal to 0 and I solve, I get that x equals 2. Now, since I have two x values, I need two corresponding y values. This is the step most kids forget. Go back to the original. I think this is easier to work with, so I'm going to, when x equals -1, y minus x equals 7. I'm going to plug in this here, so y minus -1 equals 7. Two negatives make a positive, so I'm going to make that positive. Now to solve, I subtract 1 from each side, and I get y equals 6. So this answer is -1 comma 6 because it's xy. So that takes care of this one here. I have to do it again for when x is equal to 2. So again, I'm going to pick the top equation, y minus x equals 7. Plug in my x answer. I'm going to add 2 to both sides. I get y equals 9. So my second answer is 2, 9. So this and this are my answers. If you have any questions, please make sure that you write them down and either email me or ask me next time you see me in class.